Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku was rescued by a pro hero part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below. And let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story *_2018 from L3. So let's start the video. Name. In Midoriya later changed to Aizawa at the age of 6 quirk. Telekinesis ability to move things with your mind. In this story, you're Izuku's twin brother, so you look quite similar to him. You can adjust height, hair color, eye color, and that sort of thing to what you actually are just because you could have dyed your hair or had your dad's eyes and that sort of thing. Hero costume. Black full body armored suit without sleeves, silver chains as a belt, knee-high leather boots, as well as fingerless glove-like gauntlets on each hand, which are blue, a black cloak with a hood, a white face mask that looks like bandages, and blue visor glasses that are high-tech and constantly feed you relevant information on your surroundings through an attached earpiece. Quick backstory. You go with your dad on his business trips, never meeting your mom, at least not that you remember. On the last trip, he took you to a small village in Japan, and then suddenly disappeared. You were 6 when this happened, and so you went searching for him and happened to stumble into a bad group of people. These people turned out to be villains, and they kidnapped you after you said, being the naive child you were, that you couldn't find your dad anywhere. Lucky for you, a pro hero was actually stalking this group of villains, waiting for a moment to capture them and turn them in. After being held captive for what you assumed was a few days, a mysterious figure comes and rescues you, tying up the villains with his capture weapon. To this day, you have lived under your hero's care, and now go by in Aizawa. I take a deep breath, trying again to focus on the glass of water in front of me. It shakes, lifting a bit before falling back down onto the table. Focus, what do you think I'm doing? I reply, giving a slight glare to the yellow caterpillar sitting on the chair not far from me. He simply glares back and says, how do you expect to get into UA when you're obviously distracted? If you were in my class, I would have expelled you on the spot. Isn't that so reassuring? Not even my dad wants me in his class. How much of a failure am I? Noticing the slight change in my expression, Aizawa sat up and stepped out of his sleeping bag. He nods over to the sparring ring outside, knowing I would much rather spar to clear my head than talk. After sparring with my dad for an hour, I started to make too many mistakes, leaving too many openings in my stance and defense. Taking advantage of my weak points, Aizawa was quick to get me on the ground in a hold that, even if I was at my best, I wouldn't be able to get out of. You're getting sloppy. Usually sparring clears your head, maybe this is something too big to get out with a simple fight. Aizawa gets off of me, straightening out his clothes. Go take a shower. I'll get dinner ready, and then we'll talk. I made my way slowly to my room, dreading having a talk with my father. He has never been good with emotions. To be fair, neither am I, but still. I took a long hot shower in which I mostly just stood there staring at the tile and letting the water run down my body. What is bugging me so much? Did something happen recently to trigger me, or am I just off today? Nothing is wrong with me, right? Maybe I'm losing my quirk. Is that possible? That's probably not it. A firm knock sounds on my door, and I jump a little. Dinner is almost done, hurry it up in there. I quickly turn off the shower and dry myself off before changing into sweatpants and a t-shirt. I ruffle my HC hair with my towel, getting it a bit more dry than it was previously before making my way to the dining room. The table was already set for 2, and the food was in the center, steam rising from the pan. I sit down in my chair and say my thanks before helping myself to a serving. Aizawa clears his throat before looking at me from across the small table, clearly expecting me to talk to him about whatever had me off today. What do I tell him? He won't believe me if I say I don't know, will he? I doubt he would make me talk about anything I don't want to though. But I've been a bit off for almost a week now, so he knows something is up. I'm not sure what's wrong with me. I mumble. He looks slightly irritated, but at the same time, I could see the smallest bit of concern on his features. How many times have I told you not to mumble? He gives an exasperated sigh. So you don't know what's up with you recently, huh? I shake my head, looking down at my plate, while slowly moving my food around on it. Do you think something's wrong with me? I voice out my fear, not stopping to think about it first. He grabs my left hand that was tapping the table nervously. And nothing is wrong with you, we all have our off days. It's just usually for you those off days are caused by something. Are you sure there's nothing you want to tell me? I don't know, Dad. I just don't know. Suddenly an idea struck me, and my face lit up a bit from the sad expression it had before. Aizawa raises a questioning eyebrow at me. I then quickly shook my head, realizing it was a dumb idea. Sorry, I just thought of something, then realized it was a dumb idea. What was it? It can't be that bad if you lit up like that. I sigh before looking down at my hands as I fidget with my fingers. Well, I was thinking that maybe I could possibly figure out what's wrong with me if I When was the last time we visited Hitoshi? Are you sure about this? Aizawa asks as we pull up in front of Shinso's house. He could ask something that triggers you more than you already are right now. I know, Dad, but I need to figure out what's wrong with me. I say as I step out the car and walk to the front door. I knock and soon the door is opened by Aunt Mihoko. Hi Auntie, is Hitoshi around? I told him that we were coming to visit today. She lets us inside before calling Hitoshi down from his room. Hey In, is there a reason for your visit? Hitoshi asks as we move to sit in the living room. There is I've been off lately with training and my quirk, and I don't know why. Usually, it's because something is on my mind. But I don't know what it is this time, and I was thinking you might be able to help. Hitoshi didn't seem surprised at my statement as his face remained neutral, and yet I could see the slight glimmer of joy in his eyes at being asked to help someone. I know that Hitoshi's quirk has led to a lot of hate and rejection, even though he is the most kind person I know, and would never hurt anyone with his quirk, and so when I put my trust in him, I knew it meant a lot to him. So what do you want me to do then? He asks. What do I want him to do? Just ask me questions and get me to answer them. But they would need to be pretty specific, if that was going to work. I fidget with my hands before looking up at him. Whatever you think can help, I guess. And just like that, I felt my body go rigid and my fingers stopped fidgeting. I could still see and think, but I no longer had control of my body. My surroundings felt dampened, like I was hearing everything underwater. I could see Hitoshi and Aizawa in front of me, and their lips moved. Their expressions changed after I said something. They looked confused with a hint of worry. What did I say? What's wrong with me? What was in my subconscious that got that kind of reaction out of them? Why can't I remember and hear what I'm saying to them? Suddenly, I regain feeling in my body, and sounds return around me. I shake my head before looking at them. What did I say? I ask hesitantly, knowing that whatever it was wasn't good. They share a look before telling me. You said that you were just stressed since UA entrance exams are coming up. I have a gut feeling that that isn't all that I said, but as I stare into my father's eyes, I know they won't tell me, at least not right now. But I already knew that. There has to be something you're not telling me. They shake their heads, and I sigh before rubbing my hands over my face. I guess I'll just have to get Dad to tell me when we get home. Why won't you tell me what's wrong with me? I yell out of frustration. It's been an hour since we got home, and he still won't budge on the topic. My eyes start to sting as my nails dig into my palms. I'm never going to get into UA like this. You just want me to fail the exam, so you don't have to teach someone as worthless as me. You're the worst dad ever. I shout before my hands move out of anger. Aizawa's eyes widen at my last statement before they glow red. Objects drop to the floor in front of him. Objects that I hadn't realized I had moved to hit him. Aizawa was quick to move toward me and hug my shaking figure. I sobbed into his chest and held him tightly. I didn't mean that. I mumble. He simply ruffles my hair and responds, I know. I feel myself slowly drift off to sleep in my dad's arms and vaguely feel myself being tucked into my bed. Daddy? Dad? Where are you? I yell into the cold night air. I was done sitting around. Dad was missing. Something must have happened to him. He wouldn't have left me, right? I bump into a woman who to me is just a blur because of the tears in my eyes. Are you all right? She asks before gasping when she looks at my face. You look so much like him. She mumbles. Is your name Midoriya? My mind floods with panic at this random woman knowing my name. I quickly back away from her. Daddy never told anyone about me because he said it was too dangerous. Always told me people would be out to hurt me if they knew I was his son. Before I could think anything through, I turn and run away from the lady who just called out to me, but did not follow me. I look back to see a boy standing next to the woman clinging to her skirt. All I can see is their matching green hair. That was the last I saw of them before I stumbled into the wrong alley. Strangers grab me harshly, and I scream before being hit in the head. I wake up breathing heavily. My dad rushes in and was quick to ask what happened. It was just a dream, I'm fine. I say, rubbing my face with my hands. Are you sure? Sounded more like a nightmare to me. You did scream. I shake my head before wondering, if it was actually a dream or a memory. Would it be possible to find out who my mom is? 𝗬𝗓𝗵𝗲, I knew it would only be a matter of time before he would want to look for his actual family. But I didn't think it would be this soon. Couldn't he have waited until he was finished school or something? I sigh before looking him in the eye. Is there a reason you want to know all of the sudden? He looks down at his hands before saying, I think I might have run into her the night I got captured, and there was a boy with her who looked like her son. I could tell that this is what has been bothering him from his subconscious. He thinks he might have a brother. I'll help you to find your mother if you want, but that means that I'll be the one looking, and you have to stay here and train. Your main objective should still be to pass the 𝗬𝗧 entrance exam. If I haven't found her by the time you pass, then you can help. Deal? Deal. I respond before shaking his outstretched hand. I get up and start to get ready for the day, knowing I'll have to try my best to stay focused. As the days progress, I slowly get a good handle on my quirk, so I start designing my hero suit that I'll need to submit to 𝗬𝗧. I'm not sure what the best weapon would be for me since I can control things with my mind. But then I remembered watching an anime in which one of the characters controls chains as their weapon, and thought that that would be a cool thing to have. Today is the day of the entrance exam, and I can't help but feel nervous. Looking at myself in the mirror, I can't help wonder if my real dad would be proud of me now, and if my mom even remembers that I still exist. I know that I look more like my father, but that's only because that's all I was ever able to compare myself to. A knock on my bedroom door brings me out of my thoughts. Better hurry up, or you'll be late. I check the time and realize I have 5 minutes before I need to leave if I want to make it to the exam on time. I straighten out my outfit before running to the kitchen and quickly grabbing an apple from the counter, as well as my phone and bag, before I run out the door to catch the train. I hop on the train and sit down before I start to fidget. This is it. This is my one and only chance of becoming a famous hero. Hopefully the test is easy and the practical is not too hard. The train comes to a stop, and I check the time. Just great, I'm going to be late. I make a mad dash to the entrance and accidentally run into someone who seems to be in the same hurry I am. We both fall backwards and start to apologize profusely. I stand up first and lend him a hand up. When he looks up at me, my body freezes up. He looks so familiar to me, in fact. He looks like me besides the hair and eye color. Do I know you from somewhere? He asks with a nervous laugh. I suddenly realize I was staring and look away awkwardly. I don't think so. I say as I shift my weight from foot to foot nervously. Well, okay then, I'm Izuku Midoriya, it's nice to meet you. He says as he gets up and brushes himself off. I freeze up again at his name. It can't be right, he seems to be my age considering he's here for the entrance exam. Oh shit, the entrance exam. I check the time on my phone before panicking a little. We're late for the exam, I exclaim before rushing towards the front doors again with Midoriya in tow. As I burst into the room, I am met with a lot of eyes staring at me from the dark seats of the assembly room. Sorry. I say as I make my way to a seat, trying not to make eye contact with President Mike since I definitely did not want to be called out today. After finishing the written exam in less than 15 minutes, I sat in my seat contemplating my encounter with who I assume is my twin brother that I didn't know I had. I never thought I would have any family left after my dad disappeared, but I guess I was wrong. The strangest part is he didn't seem to know or wonder about me. Maybe he was told by his mom that he never had another sibling or a father. Maybe he grew up thinking that our father had abandoned him. You'd think that when you meet someone who looks so similar to yourself, that you would have some sort of reaction. I wonder what his quirk is since I know mine is mostly derived from his mother. I'm assuming he got something to do with Dad's quirk. Maybe he breathes fire like Dad used to. Time is up, please hand in your paper at the front desk and return to your seats, President Mike said. Wow, it's already been 3 hours. I guess time goes by fast when you're stuck in your own mind. Now for the fun part of this entrance exam. President Mike explains the rules and the point system as I search the room with my eyes to see if I could recognize anyone else here who is taking the exam. I spot a head of purple fluffy hair and realize that Shinso is also here. This practical part of the exam seems so unfair now that I think about it. How is Shinso, a person with one of the best quirks, going to get points if he can't control robots? I cross my fingers in hopes that I get placed in the same testing ground as him at least. Then I could help him out a little. I stand outside of the training ground waiting for the doors to open. I couldn't help but notice that Midoriya and Hitoshi were both in the same exam group as me. As soon as the door opens, I stay in the back to see where Hitoshi would go. It was obvious that he had already given up on passing considering he went and sat pretty much right at the entrance. I walk up to him quickly before saying, "You're not failing on my watch. The exam is 10 minutes long, so if he gets points by controlling me for the first 5 minutes, that should be enough time for me to get enough points for myself." "What are you talking about? My quirk is useless against robots, and you know I don't like controlling people without their knowledge of my quirk. Take control of me for 5 minutes and get enough points to pass. You've got my permission, and if this doesn't work, I'll talk to the board and say the points I got in the first half are all you're doing." "Are you sure?" "𝗵𝘃𝗲." I slowly regain feeling of my body, feeling slightly dazed. I look around and give Hitoshi a thumbs up when I spot him off to the side. Then I go around and start lifting robots and smashing them together. Suddenly, a giant robot appeared. This must be the 0-point robot that President Mike mentioned. Everyone was running away from it, except for one person. Midoriya. What the heck is he doing? Does want to get stomped by that thing. I start running towards it as well and realize why he ran towards it. A girl was trapped under a large piece of debris and would get crushed if she didn't get help. The giant robot slowly lifted its foot and was about to crush her when my instincts took over, and I held the foot in place right above the piece of debris. The strain was horrible. Never had I tried so hard to fight against not only gravity, but a moving object that was intent on putting its foot down. I watch as Midoriya keeps running full speed towards the robot. Is he an idiot? My eyes widen, and the foot moves a bit closer to the debris as my focus wavers. Midoriya truly is an idiot. Who in their right mind would attack the giant robot head-on, instead of freeing the victim first? Before I knew it, the strain I had was removed as the robot collapses onto its back. I shift my attention back to Midoriya, realizing he has no way to stop himself from falling. The closer I look at him, the more I am scared for him. His legs are severely broken, enough that they were both facing directions they shouldn't be able to, and his arm was also limp and disfigured. Before he could go splat, I slowly stop his body from falling before placing him carefully on the ground. I faintly hear him whisper something along the lines of, "I can still do this, I can still get at least 1 point." Before President Mike calls out that the exam time was over. I feel bad for Midoriya. It was almost like he wasn't built for his quirk, or as if he hasn't learned to use it yet. I walk over to him before saying, "I don't think I've ever seen something so reckless in my life, but you still took down the robot and saved that girl, so I'm sure you'll still pass. Oh, and I don't believe I told you my name, I'm in." He passed out shortly after saying his thanks for stopping his fall. I somehow think we could become great friends, or maybe even close brothers, if he is actually related to me. Soon enough, recovery girl came up to his unconscious body, mumbling something about how one's quirk could even do this to their body, before she kissed him a few times. I assume that's how her healing quirk works. Is he going to be alright? I ask, a bit concerned for him. He'll be just fine. Might have to be sitting at home for a while in a couple of casts, but nothing life-threatening. I sighed in relief. Do you need any help transferring him over to the nurse's station? That would be great, that way I can attend to any others who got injured. I nod in response before carefully picking Midoriya's body off the ground. He is surprisingly heavy. I guess he must have quite a bit of muscle, cause he definitely isn't fat. His limbs seem to have been corrected back to face the right way, so I could hold him in a piggyback instead of bridal style. Wouldn't that be awkward if he was to wake up with me carrying him like a princess? After placing him on a bed in the nurse's station, I leave and left the rest up to the pros. I quickly text my dad asking if he was at the school still, or if he was home. He responds with "at the school," so I go to the main building and make my way to his office. I knock on the door, and when I don't get an answer, I let myself in. Apparently at the school did not mean his office. I sigh before walking out and closing the door. I need to talk to the board and ask about Shinso, because I swore I wouldn't let him fail. The problem is I have no clue where they watch the exams from. Maybe I should just ask. I shoot another text asking where and quickly make my way over using a campus map I found in Aizawa's office. Midoriya's 𝗵𝘃𝗲. I wake up in what seems to be a nurse's office. My entire body feels fatigued and beyond sore, and yet none of my limbs seemed nearly as damaged as they were before I had fallen into unconsciousness. Looking down at myself, I realize my legs are completely healed, and I shift my weight to stand up on the right side of the bed. Only my arm was still bandaged and in a sling, but as soon as I start to walk, I feel like I'm about to pass out again. I wonder if All Might knew this would happen to me. He would have told me, right? I move to sit back on the bed and wait for someone to come and help me and tell me what all happened. I faintly remember talking to the guy I bumped into before the exam. He said his name was In, but is that his last or first name? I guess I'll just have to ask him when I see him next. If I ever see him again. The nurse walks into the room and seems happy that I am now awake. A few seconds later, All Might walks in his real form. I glance back and forth between the nurse and him in a panicked way until I realize that the school board probably knows about his condition, including Recovery Girl. So you found a successor, All Might. I blink at her in disbelief before turning to All Might, who just shrugged before saying, "She is the only one that knows here and 2 other people that are close to me, but that's it. You cannot tell anyone about the nature of your power, because it will danger you and everyone around you. Including the world," is what he didn't need to say. I glance back and forth between the two as they argue with each other, feeling awkward. When they had finished, Recovery Girl told me everything I broke, and that I would feel drained for the next couple of days. "Is the boy who stopped me from falling still here?" He said his name was in Aizawa's kid? I believe he is still here. Aizawa? That sounds familiar. Is he a pro hero? I want to thank him for helping me during the exam. Would that be possible? I suppose we could call him over to talk with you. 𝗵𝗲. I sat off to the side as the school staff went over the exam results. I had already pled Hitoshi's case to them and watched as the number of points for him went up on the scoreboard. I know that I technically shouldn't have been able to see others' test results, but no one had told me to leave yet. I hope Midoriya is all right. It would be a shame if he got so injured he couldn't fight anymore, especially since he passed. I glance around the room before my eyes land to my father, who is looking at his phone with a puzzled expression. He looks up and makes eye contact with me, and then walks over to me. "Apparently a kid named Midoriya wants to speak with you in the nurse's office." I look at him wide-eyed and quickly move to plead my case. "I swear I didn't search for my family. We just bumped into each other on the way into the exam, and I don't even think he knows who I am. In fact, I'm not even sure we're related." My dad stares blankly at me as I finished rambling. The way he looks tells me that he already knew I didn't go back on our deal. I quickly stand up and give him a curt nod before making my way to the nurse's office. I knock on the door, not wanting to disturb any conversation he could be having with other people. The door opens and Recovery Girl stands in front of me. "I'll just be going. My work here is done," she says before leaving me and Midoriya alone in the room. I close the door and sit down next to the bed. My fingers tap nervously on my knees as I look down at my legs. Why did he want to talk to me? Did he figure out my last name? Does he know we could be related? Midoriya clears his throat, which causes me to look up at him. I notice he is holding a pen with a notebook open on his lap. I first want to say thank you for helping out during the exam, even though I'm sure I didn't pass. Secondly, I was wondering what your quirk is. I look at him a bit confused. He just wants to know what my quirk is. I know I'm not supposed to tell you this, but you did pass the exam. As for my quirk, it's telekinesis. Midoriya looks on the verge of disbelief. I passed? I nod and a bright smile spreads across his face. I'm sure you'll end up in Aizawa's class with me. He contemplates what I said for a moment. Your dad's a teacher here? I simply shrug. Why didn't you get in under recommendation then? My mind goes back to the end of middle school when I asked Aizawa to recommend me to Yua. I shivered at the memory. True heroes won't need help getting into a hero school. You'll have to get in under your own merit, or you don't get in at all. I wanted to get in because I was just as strong as everyone else, not because I live with a pro hero, I say. Midoriya nods before writing in his notebook. You said your quirk is telekinesis. What are the limits and details of what your quirk does? Why do you want to know? I ask, smugly raising one eyebrow. I like to study heroes and their techniques in order to become a better hero myself, I guess. I also find it fascinating how there are so many amazing and different quirks. I let out a small chuckle at his explanation. He's so adorable. I mean cute, like a little brother kind of cute, cause no incest here. To be honest, I haven't really figured out my limit for weight that I can lift yet. My mind has to be focused in order to use my quirk properly. Negative emotions can also trigger my quirk, so it's best to stay on my good side. I can only lift a couple things at a time because of the focus that goes into lifting each object. Using my quirk also gives mental strain, which could lead to bad migraines if used for too long. As I said all of this, Midoriya was furiously writing things down on a page that is titled in Aizawa. Do you know who Aizawa is? I ask, curious since he seems to know a lot about heroes. He shrugs. It sounds really familiar, but I just can't put a face or hero name to it. I'm going to give you some hints then. He wears a white capture weapon that is a scarf. I watch as Midoriya takes in that information. When he doesn't seem to get it, I give him another hint. His quirk is used by looking at people. Realization dawns on Midoriya's face, and he quickly flips to a page near the front of his notebook. The page he lands on is titled Eraserhead. "This is him, right?" he asks before showing me a page with a drawing of him on it. I nod and smile. "Did you draw that? It looks exactly like him." Midoriya's cheeks turn a light pink at the compliment as he nods and closes the book. "Who's your favorite hero?" Midoriya asks, smoothly changing the topic. "It would be Eraserhead, even if I didn't live with him. He will always be my hero." "That's cool. Mine has always been All Might ever since I was little. I wanted to be a hero like him that smiled no matter the circumstances." I look over to the clock on the wall. It's almost dinner time. "Do you need any help getting home?" Midoriya looks at me before rubbing the back of his neck. "If you don't mind, that would be great. I don't live too far from here, just a train ride away. My mom is probably worried sick right now considering I told her the exam ended at noon." I quickly got to my feet and start to help him home, knowing the longer we took the more Mrs. Midoriya would worry. Before leaving, I texted Dad and told him where I was going and that I would be home in time for supper. Midoriya almost fell asleep on the train, so I was glad I came with. Who knows what would have happened had I not. Soon we were standing in front of his apartment door as he fished around his bag for the key. I ring the doorbell since he is clearly not able to find the key unless he were to dump his entire bag out. The door opens quickly and a short woman comes rushing out to hug Midoriya. She almost seems on the verge of tears as she scans over his body for any injuries. Her eyes land on his wrist that was bandaged and in a sling. I feel uncomfortable standing here unnoticed and watching a very personal mother-son interaction. I clear my throat and say, "I guess I'll be going then. Have a good night, Midoriya." I move to retreat back to my own house and away from the awkward situation I was now in, but someone stopped me. It was Midoriya's mom. She had grabbed my hand and pulled me back to face her before giving me a hug. This whole scenario just got hella awkward. Why is she hugging me? Why is she touching me? Does she not have any idea of personal space? As a result of these thoughts, my body stiffens up, so she is basically hugging a board. She pulls away before giving me a closed-eyes smile. "Thank you for bringing my son home in one piece. It's not a big deal. I was headed in this direction anyways." Ha. I rub the back of my neck, awkwardly feeling oddly tense. She seems so familiar, and yet so different. This must be the same person I ran into all those years ago. This must be my mom. Will she recognize me though? It's been so long. I should have hugged her back. I watch as she slowly studies me as well, taking everything in. I glance over to Midoriya, who looked puzzled by the reaction I have gotten out of his mom. "What's your name?" she asks suddenly. I watch her closely, searching her eyes for an answer. "I think you already know the answer to that question," I say softly. Her eyes start to well up with tears. Happy tears, I'm not sure. I was never a good judge of emotions. Midoriya's 𝗵𝗲, I am so confused right now. My mom looks as if she's going to break down in front of me, all because of In. What did he do? Who is this guy who made my mom cry for seemingly no reason? Why does she supposedly already know who he is? "Mom, are you all right?" I ask worriedly, knowing she came first before all of my questions that were floating in my head. She nods and gives me a genuine smile, one I haven't seen on her in years. I look up towards In and realize he also has tears gleaming in his eyes. He keeps mumbling to himself something about finding them. What's going on? I'm so lost right now. I say out in the open air, not sure if I should be happy like they are. "Let's go inside, Izuku, and I'll explain what's happening." "Come on, In." She gestures for him to come, and he follows us inside our small apartment. In's 𝗵𝗲. My hands shake as I sit in their living room with them. I found them. I have a family, a real one. It is clear that Midoriya has no idea what's going on. I hope they accept me into their family. I'll be straightforward to start and answer questions you have after. Mrs. Midoriya says, "Izuku, this is your twin brother In, who happened to be taken from me when your father left." Facing me, she embraced me and whispered, "I'm so glad that you're okay and have grown up to be so strong. I hope you will make yourself at home here with us. But now that you're older, I won't force you to." My thoughts went back to Aizawa and all he has done for me. Do I want to leave that life behind? He raised me for over half my life. Am I just going to throw that away for blood family? The shock was evident on Izuku's face. I have a brother," he whispered with tears forming. "Why didn't you tell me, Mom? Had I known for sure that he was still alive and well, I would have. But I didn't know, and I couldn't put you through that." She was worried about me? This whole time. Probably ever since that day I ran into her. Sorry Izuku, I should have told you who I was from the start. I just heard your last name, and I didn't know what to do. Dad never told me I had a brother either. So if we could have a fresh start, I'm in Midoriya. So Aizawa isn't your dad? I shrug and respond with, technically no. But he took me in when I was 6, so he's my dad according to me. What happened to our father then? Izuku asks. I don't know. He just disappeared one night, and when I went out to search for him, being the ambitious 6-year-old I was, but I just got into trouble and Eraserhead rescued me. Wait, Mom, who's older? Izuku asks curiously. Does it really matter? Like, wouldn't we be minutes apart? I'm fairly certain that In is older. I watch as Izuku slumps a little in his seat and mumbles, I guess that makes sense, I mean he did get a quirk. And you didn't? I ask, a bit confused why he would say that. Izuku sputters as he tries to come up with an excuse to cover his mistake. I do have a quirk, it's just not very useful right now. You saw how destroyed my body was because of it. You wouldn't believe that I didn't have one, I mean you saw me use it at the exam. Look, I know we technically just met, but I'm really glad that I finally have a sibling. And I hope you know that since I'm the big brother in this situation that I'll protect you as best I can. I hope you can trust me enough to do that, and maybe let me in on all your secrets. You know, if you want to anyway, no pressure. Our mom looks at me fondly. Guess we both got the mumbling and rambling from Dad, not that he would know that. I quickly shoot Aizawa a text about everything, and how I still think it'd be best if I stayed with him since I know him better, but that I won't be home for dinner since they invited me to stay. Aizawa's reply is just a grinning emoji and a thumbs up. But I knew he was probably in bed crying because of the thought of his child leaving him because he's a big softie. After dinner, Izuku and I talked for a bit before I decided it'd be best if I leave so that he can rest. His eyes are drooping closed while we say our goodbyes, and I thank both of them for everything and gave my number to Izuku to contact me. I quickly make my way home, an elated smile on my face. I accidentally took a wrong turn because I was distracted with my thoughts, and as I look around, I realize that I don't know where I am. I pull out my phone and realize it's dead. Great, just great. It's dark out, and I'm lost. It's late, so people are probably sleeping, and I don't want to go knocking on strangers' doors at this time of night. I hear footsteps behind me and turn around to nothing. Who's there? I ask confidently. What is up with me and getting lost at night? Like, seriously, I'm gonna die one of these times. I walk towards where I heard the sound. I turn to look into the alleyway that I suspected they were in but saw nothing. I look around cautiously with my back to the wall of the building. Something is off, I can feel it. I look up to the top of the building and see a dark silhouette. Unable to make out a distinct figure from this distance, I started to float the nearest objects to me. So all I have to fight with is 2 flower pots, and a tin can just grate. I'm almost definitely going to die here, assuming whoever this guy is out to get me. Before I could even react, white fabric wraps around my waist, and my objects of defense fall to the ground. But not because I lose focus. I'm pulled harshly and quickly up to the rooftop, and I hiss at the impact and whiplash. Are you freaking kidding me right now? Dad, seriously, what was that for? I groan out as the capture weapon releases me. He looks over my body and shrugs. I was bored, and you looked lost. I glared at him. Don't you have better things to do when on patrol? Like not stalk your son and make him think someone is trying to kill him? He just looks around before hopping to the next roof, and then the next. Wait, I still don't know how to get home from here. He stops in his tracks and nods his head to follow him. Isn't this just the best thing to do when you're exhausted? Parker from building to building. Luckily, I managed to make it home in one piece. I collapse onto my bed soon after. Time skip to first day of classes 1 week later. Izuku, and I have gotten closer in such a short time. We truly feel like brothers who have lived together their whole lives. Izuku is little envious that I live with a pro hero, but I'm not sure why, considering he seems to spend a lot of his time with All Might. His quirk also seems like All Might's, even though it's not possible that he had a different father than I did. I meet up with Izuku on our way to UA. We did coincidentally both end up in Aizawa's class, and I was just a little nervous for everyone. My dad held the record for most expulsions. One time he even expelled a whole class. Seeming to notice my nervousness, whether that was because I was mumbling or not, I'm not sure, Izuku gave me a pat on the back. You should lighten up a bit, I'm sure your dad won't expel his own kid, plus I doubt he would expel any of his friends either, hopefully, he says with a nervous chuckle. I give him a small smile before nodding. You're right, we should just enjoy the fact we got into the best hero course Japan has to offer. We walk towards Class 1A and enter the room. It was loud to say the least. I quickly take a seat and watch my new classmates, taking in all the new information. I glance to the door to see my dad in his yellow sleeping bag on the ground. I hide my face in my arms on my desk. Is he always this embarrassing? I guess no one knows that I'm his kid. With that thought, I look back up as the class goes quiet, and I realize 𝗫𝗁 also got into our class. Guess he knows, but he would also feel embarrassed considering he is a blood relative to 𝗧𝗏. 𝗧𝗏 reprimands the class on how long it took for us to get silent and steps out of the sleeping bag and introduces himself. After that, he tells us we are going to miss orientation and instead go outside for a quirk exam. Most of the class seems excited that we won't have a boring lecture, but I just cross my fingers and hope that no one will get expelled after this. 𝗧𝗏 explains that we will be doing things like track and field kind of events, except using our quirks. He then goes on to say the person who does the worst will get expelled. I sigh internally, knowing that both Izuku and 𝗫𝗁 might have difficulties with getting good scores. I placed in the middle in almost every event, except the ball throw and the strength test. When it was Izuku's turn at the ball throw, 𝗧𝗏 stopped him from using his quirk, and I was a bit relieved because I knew his entire arm would have been destroyed, and he wouldn't have been able to do any of the events after that. He allowed him to throw again, but this time the ball went flying, and he only broke one finger. Some kid, I think his name was 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝗏, started yelling at Izuku about how he was quirkless and how he had been lied to his entire life. He charged at him, but didn't get close enough to do any damage because I held him in place with my quirk and glared at him. This must be the bully childhood friend Izuku said also applied to get into 𝗬𝗏. I don't know who you think you are, but no one hurts people here. We're here to be heroes, not villains. That being said, I pulled him back toward the group, a bit harsher than necessary, making him stumble backwards. And who are you? Just some damn extra. Don't ever get in my way again. 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝗏 yells angrily at me. You want to fight? I ask straightforwardly. Enough. 𝗧𝗏 says, glaring at us both. 𝗵𝘃𝗁𝗏 say another word that threatens your classmates and you're gone. Looking over to me, he says, as for you, no starting fights at school, no matter how right you are. He doesn't add a punishment or threat because he knows I'll assume the worst if I act out of line again. Sorry, sensei. I mumble. After the ball throw, I could tell that my father had changed his mind on expelling anyone, and I let Midoriya know, and I could tell he almost cried in relief. This class actually seemed pretty competent compared to what I've heard from 𝗧𝗏 about previous classes. Almost everyone had a strong quirk. The end results were put up, and I placed 6th, which isn't that bad. At the bottom was 𝗫𝗁, which is understandable because his quirk is not physical. I glance over to him, and he doesn't look worried at all. So the whole expulsion thing was a hoax to get you to perform your best. 𝗧𝗏 says, and the class reacts as I thought they would. Yaoyorozu mentions how she knew all along, and thought everyone else knew too, so she didn't say anything. I roll my eyes because I knew my dad had meant it at the beginning. She seems like a smart ass. Only 2 people in my class got in under recommendation, and that was Todoroki and Yaoyorozu. I knew that Todoroki is Endeavor's son, so it makes sense that he would have a powerful quirk, but Yaoyorozu just came from a rich family, and I hope that she's not stuck up like some rich people are. Todoroki's quirk is so epic I envy it just a little. Who wouldn't want to be half cold and half hot? Like being able to maintain body temperature equilibrium and use fire and ice is just so cool. Not to mention he's hot in more ways than one, if you get what I'm saying. He's also reserved, which I find appealing, not being one to like noisy people. Maybe I'll try talking to him. 𝗵𝗲𝗏, this is it. I'm going to just go up and talk to him. I take a few steps towards Todoroki's desk, but ultimately turn back around and sit down. I can't do this. How am I supposed to walk up and pretend to be all buddy-buddy with him when I rarely talk to people I don't know, especially good-looking people? I groan into my hands, body hunching over my desk. I don't even know if he likes guys. In fact, I don't know if half the people here are accepting of that kind of thing. Maybe I should just not do this to myself on the first day. With my mind made up, I look over towards Todoroki's desk again to see Midoriya trying to become friends with him. I might have only known Midoriya for a week now, but I know he is the type to become friends with anyone and everyone. I see Todoroki glance over to me as if contemplating something, and he moves to ask Midoriya something before Dad walks in. Perfect timing. Everyone quickly takes their seats before 𝗧𝗏 decides we should all introduce ourselves and our quirks. Going by class numbers, we all stand up one at a time to introduce ourselves and the name of our quirk. I stand up last and contemplate what I want to go by, my brain being conflicted with which one would be more confusing. I'm in and my quirk is telekinesis. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, especially Todoroki's. It was as if he was trying to figure something out. My dad looks at me saying I have to say my last name, just like everyone else, and so hesitantly I say, "And Aizawa is my full name." I slowly sit back down and can't help but hear the murmuring around me. Todoroki just looks confused, and he keeps looking back between Midoriya and I. I think he sees the resemblance, but now he isn't sure since we don't have the same last name. Maybe he'll come and talk to me about it. That sure would be easier than me trying to start a conversation with him. Finally, the lunch bell rings, and as I'm about to head out the door, "Aizawa, stay here, I need to talk with you for a moment." I turn back to him and give him a look of "what do you want" before walking over to his desk. The room emptied out pretty fast, and soon it was just the two of us. "Take a seat." I don't move and stay standing in front of him and cross my arms. "What's this about, Dad? Are you sure you want to use Aizawa as your last name? That's going to cause a lot of pressure on you, you know? You'll have higher expectations as the son of a pro." "It is my legal last name, so why should I change it back? Just because I found my actual family. Look, I know you're concerned about me, but I'm willing to take the pressure head on. Plus, we don't look alike, so what are the chances people will actually think we're related?" He gives me a quick head rub, ruffling my hair before pulling me into a hug. "Just be safe, okay? I don't care if anyone knows, but I won't say anything if you don't want me to." I pull away and smile at him. "I don't care if they know either, cause you're a great dad, and I'm proud to be your son, even if it's not by blood. Can I go to lunch now?" He nods and moves towards his sleeping bag in the corner, as I rush out the door towards the cafeteria. I check the time and see I still have half an hour for lunch. I grab my tray and look around the room, wondering who to sit by. I then see Midoriya waving me over to his table, where there is also Uraraka and Ida. I make my way over and take a seat next to Midoriya as I say my greetings. Uraraka was the first to speak to me. "So your name's Aizawa, like Aizawa-sensei?" I nod before saying, "I'd prefer if you just call me In though." "Okay, In. Why didn't you get in under recommendation if your dad's a pro?" I shrug, not wanting to explain it 100 times. Ida chimes into our conversation. "You don't seem to look like Aizawa-sensei, though, so are you not related?" "Ooh, well, we're not related by blood, but I'm still his son since I'm adopted, in a way. That's why I have his last name." I start to stare intently at my food, hoping to make it so they don't ask more questions. I'd rather not relive my past and rather live in the present and make some new friends that I feel comfortable fully opening up to. Midoriya is quick to see how uncomfortable I am getting and changes the topic to quirks. He pulls out his notebook without hesitation and writes everything the other two are saying about their quirks into it. I smile a bit at his mumbling that comes with the writing before the bell rings. Our next class is with Present Mike, who I see as another fatherly figure since he started to date Aizawa a few years back. Not really sure how they're compatible, but I'm not going to complain. I cross my fingers and hope he doesn't call on me, just because I am the only one he really knows. My prayers go unanswered as the first thing he does as I step through the door is yell my name obnoxiously loud. My cheeks tint pink at the attention and eyes on me. "Pa, Present Mike, was that really necessary?" Almost calling him Papa, my cheeks turn redder. "Ima, just go die now." I mumble as I make my way to my desk. Dad's relationship with Present Mike hasn't been made public knowledge, so hopefully I did not just majorly screw up. I know that Dad most definitely wants to keep his private life private, thus why he is an underground hero. But Mike isn't, and news can spread like wildfire, especially amongst a group of teenagers. I bang my head on the desk in the middle of the lecture, trying to make my thoughts come to a halt. Everyone seems to glance at me a bit concerned. "Sorry for the disruption," I say, looking down at my hands as I go back to writing notes on the lecture. And by that I mean doodling in my notebook, cause who actually write notes. Before I knew it, the day was over, and I started to make my way away from the crowds as soon as possible. I hate questions from random people, I just don't like making friends that much. Don't get me wrong, friends are great, but it takes a while to get to the friendship level with me, since I mostly stay in my shell. The case with Midoriya is different, cause that's a relationship we're trying to build from scratch, because it's a relationship we were supposed to have already if we had stayed together at birth. I text my dad and tell him I'm going home before I start on my way. Halfway home it starts to rain, which I don't really mind, but I didn't bring a jacket, so I pick up my pace. It then starts to pour, and so I sprint in the direction of home, having a hard time seeing through the downpour. I trip over a box on the path and fall onto the grass, dropping my bag. As I tripped, I had heard a soft whimper, so I look around me as I sat, soaked, on the grass. The box I had tripped over is closed, and so I set it upright and open it. Inside is a small black ball of fur wrapped in a drenched blanket. The poor kitten shakes from the cold, so I quickly remove it from the blanket and put it inside my blazer. I gently tuck the tiny animal into my pocket and hold it against me, letting it steal my warmth. I realize I'm not far from home, so I quickly run the rest of the way. Once inside, I grab a hand towel to dry the kitten off. I then heat up some milk in a bowl and set it on the floor next to it. It purrs contentedly as I pet it on my lap after it had warmed up. Hopefully Dad lets me keep this little guy. 𝗵𝗲𝗵𝗲, I wake up from the door to my room slamming open. Apparently, I had fallen asleep with the kitten. Oh shoot, the kitten. I look up to see my dad at the door, kitten in his scarf. Have something to tell me? He asks as his dead eyes seem to stare into my soul. Ooh, I got it for you as a present because I know you like cats. I respond hesitantly. He seems to ponder my answer for a moment before sighing. If you wanted a cat, you could have just said so. He will be your responsibility since I'm always gone. With that said, he places the cat down on the ground and leaves the room. I'm a little shocked he didn't ask any more questions, but I soon get up and start my training since I slept for about an hour. Aizawa no longer would have much time to train me since he had school and heroing to do, so I just train by myself in our backyard. I start with a full body workout before switching over to meditation and then quirk training. The workout was easy compared to the regiment that Dad has set out for quirk training. Who knew that just because he's a teacher means he gets to take home equipment used for training? Several robots made of steel and made so compactly that they couldn't be crushed, even when applying several tons of force would be seen as really dangerous for most people to fight. Sadly, my father wanted to make sure I couldn't just crush my training equipment with a single thought, so they would actually be a challenge. The robots are set to taser mode, and I activate 5 of them, using the switch on the back before backing away and waiting for them to attack. They quickly surround me before charging at me one at a time. I dodge and try to flip them over with my quirk, but they're fast and all look the same, so mixing up which one is which becomes a problem. As I dodge one, another comes from behind, and I quickly jump since they are about as tall as my waist. It shouldn't too difficult to jump over. I realize while in the air that they have been given a jumping mechanism as well and swear to myself as my leg gets tased. I land on the ground and stumble a bit before moving rubber from the training tires around my body to act as armor to the tasers. Alright, all I have to do is land a hit on the underside of the bot, and they'll deactivate. I start to see the pattern in their movements and make my first move against them. I quickly knock one bot into another, causing them to short circuit for a brief movement as they tase each other. In that moment, I flip them up into the air with my quirk and jump and punch the underside of both before they come tumbling to the ground. 2 down, 3 to go. I go to do the same thing again when I hear a happy voice come into the yard. Hey in. Aizawa-sensei invited me for dinner, isn't that nice? Izuku says while unlocking the gate. While I am distracted, the rubber falls to the ground, and the bots are quick to notice the mistake. They all move in and tase my side and both legs. I bite my lip to hold in the muffled curses, knowing Mom would not be so happy if her pure son came home with a new vocabulary. Quickly, I use my quirk and throw them all into the air, punching each one into deactivation, before throwing them into a pile with the others. Sorry. I didn't know you were training back here. Are you okay? I give Izuku a small smile. I'm fine, don't worry about it. I really need to work on better multitasking. You talking shouldn't have interfered with my training, but my mind is weak, and I lose focus for just a second and bam, I'm being tased. I laugh a bit, but wince soon after because my side hurts. Why did I decide to set them to the highest voltage today? Izuku notices the wince and motions for me to sit with him at the picnic table that we have set up. Here, let me see, he says as his hands move towards the bottom of my shirt. I'm fine really, Izuku. I say a bit quicker than intended as I hold his hands back. I have a lot of scars under this shirt that I'd rather not explain right now. He continues to insist that he help, saying that if I don't want him to see, it's probably a lot worse than I'm letting on. I move to grab the first aid kit that is leaning against the side of the picnic table and place it in front of Izuku before sighing. Fine, just do whatever, I say with my hands firmly on the bench. Izuku crouches in front of me and slowing lifts my shirt up. A purple bruise about the size of my hand is on my right side and is surrounded by white scars of various sizes. Izuku tells me to hold my shirt up before he grabs an instant cold pack from the first aid kit and places it over the already swelling bruise. Are you doing okay, En? He says a few moments later. I knew he would be concerned, but I didn't expect to see so much worry in his eyes. The scars weren't just from training, or that time I was captured by villains, although the bigger ones were from that. They were on my hips in places that would look suspicious to anyone. I'm fine, Izuku, all of that is in the past, I haven't done it in years. You can see that since all they are scars. He nods before saying, if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm always here, okay? I smile at his sentiment and pull my shirt back down. For sure, little bro, I'm here for you too. He smiles back before realization crosses his face. Hey, I'm not little, you're little. We're twins, meaning that no one is older. So if I'm little, so are you. I can't say I disagree, but... Well, I started to breathe 12 minutes before you did, therefore I have more life experience. I crossed my arms and try to look as serious as possible before I burst out laughing, to which he joins in. We should go inside and get something to eat. I'm starving. I say after we have calmed down a bit. In 𝗵𝗲, we go inside to the dining room, where the table is already set with the food steaming in pots. I look around, but I don't see Aizawa. My eyes catch on the post-it note on his chair. Got called into work. Won't be back till later. Eat and go to bed on time, you have school tomorrow. Guess it'll just be us for dinner. My dad had to go to work. With that said, we say ours thanks and begin to eat. After finishing and cleaning up, we went upstairs to my room. What do you want to do? I ask, not really caring what we do. We end up playing some video games before just chatting, and soon Izuku had to go home. We said our goodbyes before I went and got ready for bed. I shower and throw on some gray sweatpants and a white t-shirt. Exhausted, I quickly get into bed and fall asleep. A bang from downstairs wakes me up. I check the time and realize it is probably just my dad coming home from work. I try to fall back asleep, but then a crashing noise could be heard throughout the house. I get out of bed slowly and open my door. None of the lights are on, that's weird. Dad, are you okay? I call out. Something doesn't sit right with me. It's too quiet, eerily so. I got no response, so I am quick to assume that someone must have broken in and Dad is not home yet. I silently close my bedroom door and panic a little in my head. What do I do? If I just stay in here, will they just go away? No, I have to contact someone, and then just maybe loud footsteps snap me out of my thoughts. They're coming upstairs. Not good. Not good. I glance around my room for something, anything to use. My eyes land on the scarf Dad had given when I was little, because I said I want to look like him. I grab it and throw it around my neck haphazardly. Luckily, when he got it for me, it was way too big. Now it fit perfectly and looked just like his. I stop admiring myself in my mirror and hide myself behind my door, just in case it opened. With my phone out, I quickly text Dad only to hear the notification go off in the next room over. Just great, he left his phone at home. The pair of footsteps go past my door and towards where the notification was heard. I let out a breath that I didn't realize I was holding in before texting my class group chat that we literally made after school yesterday. At least if I die, everyone I met at school will know. Class want to chat in, guys. I think my house was broken into, and I'm home alone. What should I do? Sent at 2:13 am, sleepy boy. Shouldn't you call the police? Isn't that the most reasonable thing to do? Sent at 2:14 am. But if I do, then they'll hear me. They are literally in the room next to mine. Sent at 2:14 am. Multiple people are typing. Suddenly my phone shuts off. No. I hold the power button attempting to turn it back on, but it's dead. Now what? I don't remember any of my encounters with villains. My brain has literally blocked off all memories that I have of villain encounters because it causes me to have panic attacks. I don't know that this is even a villain. It could just be some random person who broke into my house. A house that happens to not have its hero owner in it. What's the probability that a random person wouldn't stalk the house they were going to break into and make sure that there wasn't a hero living in it? Just stay calm and no panic attacks today. I nearly scream as my door bursts open and someone walks in. They don't seem to notice me as my body shakes behind the now open door. I work up the nerve to take a peek at whoever was in my house and freeze. No, it can't be. This guy should have been locked behind bars right now. He turns and looks straight at me, his red eyes iridescent in the moonlight coming through the window. My mind is screaming at me to run, but my body is frozen in fear as his eyes seem to pierce my soul. This can't be happening right now. I grab onto my scarf around my neck and make it float just like Dad's, trying my best to put on a strong front. He's not going to hurt you like last time. I was just a kid then. Now I know how to fight back. I try to build up my resolve, knowing that I'm a lot stronger now, but the memories slowly come pouring through the small passage, seeing him head cracked open. Memories of how I got the big scars on my torso, and how I was treated before I was saved by Aizawa. Nothing could stop the panic that starts to fill my mind at the thought of getting captured by him again. My hands start to shake as I grip the scarf tighter, as the man slowly moves towards me. Stop. Don't come any closer, I say shakily. He ignores me and continues walking, until he's towering over me just inches away. My, what do we have here? You sure have grown up, haven't you? And yet you're still so weak. I came here looking for revenge, but I guess I found a better prize, he says while creepily checking me out. No, not again, he's not taking me to that shithole again. With the nerve worked up, I kick him in the groin and knee him in the side of the head. He falls over, and I quickly run out of my room and down the stairs to the front door. I rush out of the house before climbing up the nearest and tallest building. Once at the top, I wrap the scarf firmly around myself and huddle into the corner where I'd be hidden in the shadows. After a few minutes of silence, I finally break down. I sob quietly into my arms as my whole body shakes, and I hyperventilate and slowly lose feeling in my appendages. I try my hardest to calm down, knowing it'd be best not to pass out on the rooftop, but nothing I tell myself works. The memories I had coped with by burying them into my consciousness were all resurfacing, each one bringing more fear and pain than the last. My sides start to hurt, and I experience some sort of phantom pain where my scars are. Whether it's all mental or not doesn't mean it hurts any less. I cry out, and in that moment, I hear sirens getting closer. Please help me, is what I wanted to scream out to them. Before I knew it, the loud sirens had stopped, but the flashing lights could still be seen. I get up a bit to peer over the edge to realize they had stopped in front of my house. Someone had called the cops. Someone had tried to help. Dad works with the police, maybe he is on his way over too. I curl back up into a ball, still shaking, but not full on crying anymore. I feel sick and don't want to move from this spot, knowing that here was safe for now. Footsteps make their way to my ears as well as labored breathing, and I don't move, hoping that whoever it is doesn't see me. The person seems to get closer and closer to the building I'm on. In fact, they seem to be jumping from building to building. I'm only a few buildings away from my house, but I'm high enough that I can't hear anyone on the ground. The footsteps disappear, so I assume they went to the ground. A minute or two pass before I hear my name get called. I let out a small sob in relief that Dad was okay, and he was here, and he was going to find me. It took a few seconds before 𝗧𝗏 was in front of me, crouched down and hugging me, whispering to me that everything was going to be okay. He picks me up, still hugging me with my legs around his waist and arms around his neck, holding on as if my life depended on it. Right now, he was my only anchor to the present. Without him, my mind would drift into the past, and I'd go into another full-on panic attack. He brings us down to the ground and starts to talk to the police before they leave and say they'll contact us tomorrow. I feel myself slowly drift off to sleep in 𝗧𝗏's arms. You know you aren't that light anymore, kiddo, he says with a small chuckle. He walks up the stairs to my room and goes in before abruptly walking back out and closing the door. I have a hunch you aren't going to be able to sleep alone, so I guess you can sleep in my bed. He tries to place me down on it, but I refuse to let go of him. Every fiber of my being is telling me if I let go that I'll die right now. You've got to let go, kid. I'm not going anywhere, but I do need to change. Nothing is going to happen to you, I promise. Slowly, 𝗧𝗏 pries me off of him before tucking me under the blankets. My mind and body feel numb, as if I'm not really here. I stare blankly at the ceiling with tears streaming down the sides of my face, landing uncomfortably inside of my ears. I shift to my side and hold the blankets close, trying to ground myself to something. Please let this all be some horrible dream that I wake up from in the morning. 𝗧𝗏 climbs into bed on the opposite side, and I subconsciously move closer to him to the point where I'm practically laying on him before falling asleep, my face all red and puffy. 𝗧𝗏's POV. When I had heard the police call to my address, the amount of worry I had was almost immeasurable. The reason I got called in was because the villain Blaze had escaped from prison. The same villain I had put away almost 10 years ago after I had rescued In from his clutches. I know that recently In hasn't been able to keep every part of his past in his subconscious, and I knew that if this villain appeared to him, it would all come flooding back. When I had rescued In, he was on the verge of death. Multiple wounds littered his body, from bruises to stabs to broken bones. I had sworn to keep him safe, so he would never have to experience that ever again. But as I rushed over to my house, I wondered if I was too late and my promise would be broken along with him. The police were already parked in front of my house. A few searched the area, but there was no sign of anyone. I quickly head inside and search every room. In's room was trashed, and in the walls the words "I'll be back for your son, Eraserhead" were carved. I let out a breath of slight relief before heading outside and calling his name. I run to the tallest building, knowing well that he would have wanted to be as high up as possible so no one would hear him. One look at him, and I knew he was broken, so I hug him hoping that I can once again help him put the pieces back together. Tears sting in my eyes as he holds onto me tightly. I want to apologize for leaving him all alone, but I know that's not what he needs to hear right now. I pick him up, glad that I actually stay fit, otherwise I definitely would have collapsed under his weight. I smile a little when I finally notice he's got my scarf wrapped around him. His head pushes into my neck as tears continue run down his face. After a quick chat with the police, they head off, and I carry him inside. I make a small joke about his weight and completely forgot his room was trashed. I walked in and walked out debating what to do for a second before deciding he'll sleep with me. I go to set him down, but he doesn't let go. I plead with him and tell him I'm not going anywhere before I'm able to pry him off. I change into some pajamas and brush my teeth before climbing into the unoccupied side of the bed. I shift over to be closer to the middle, and soon enough in is sound asleep with his head on my chest. I sigh before grabbing my phone and checking the time. A little after 3 and school starts at 8, so we need to get up in less than 4 hours. That is if he even wants to go to school, because it is totally understandable if he doesn't and wants to recover a bit from the trauma. I text the school board to let them know what happened just in case I don't show up to school for the first time ever. My son needs me and will always be infinitely more important than my perfect attendance record. Though I do hope he still wants to go to school, because if he's going to be a hero, there is clearly a lot more than strength and quirk training we have to work on. 𝗓𝗵𝗲, I wake up cold and drenched in sweat. I can't move. Why can't I move? My breaths come in panic short gasps as tears pour out of my eyes. The room is a blur around me. Can't breathe. Trapped. Dying. Help. Please. Anyone. Just as I start to see black spots in my vision, warm hands start to shake my shoulders gently. All I can hear is a ringing in my ears with a slightly muffled voice in the background. My limp body is moved into a sitting position as the warmth embraces me. I try my hardest to move just any part of my body, but it's like my body is still asleep while my mind is awake. The muffled voice starts to get louder and a bit clearer. Slowly, I can hear what it's saying. And if you can hear me, I want you to try breathing with me, okay? Just copying my breathing. He proceeds to take big breaths before letting the air out slowly. He does this a couple of times, and I try my best to breathe the same as him. His hands rub my back comfortingly, and slowly, I feel all the numbness in my body fade away. I move my fingers first, my entire body feeling prickly like needles are pressing into my skin. Tears stream down my face as I move my arms to grasp onto 𝗧𝗏. I calm down from my panic attack and try to suppress my emotions so I don't start another one when we inevitably pull away from each other. Don't do that. No more suppressing your feelings, otherwise they build up and end up like this. I think I'm going to book an appointment for you with a therapist. It could help you out a lot. That is, if that's fine with you. I'm not going to pressure you into talking to a professional about your problems. I feel so relieved inside. How in the world did I end up with the best dad? He pulls back from the hug with a look of concern and love, and I give him a small smile, tears still in my eyes. I promise I'll stop, and I'll try out this whole therapy thing if you think it'd help. A small meow was heard before the small black kitten, that I'd momentarily forgotten about, came and sat in my lap, rubbing against my stomach. I checked the time on the alarm clock before saying, "Guess it's time for breakfast, isn't it?" I scratched the ears of the kitten, whose green eyes gazed up at me lovingly. It's almost as if he knew I was upset and wanted to cheer me up with his cuteness. "I think I'm going to call you Lev." I get out of bed a bit shakily and move to go to my room to change. I stop at the door, which was covered in police tape, and groan. My phone is in there, and other things I need. I make my way downstairs, Lev trailing behind me. Once in the kitchen, I grab a bowl and pour some milk into it before setting it in front of Lev, who quickly empties the bowl. Guess I need to go out and actually get stuff for this cat, maybe after school. Dad is making breakfast, so I have nothing to do right now. Hey Dad, why is my room blocked off? I need my stuff from in there, like my bag and school uniform. My dad's face looks a bit shocked. I didn't think you'd want to go to school after what happened. You know you don't have to write. I nod before replying, it'd be better than being stuck at home all day with nothing to do but think. Plus, I think my friends are probably worried about me. All right, it's your decision. I'll grab your things from your room. Would you mind making sure the food doesn't burn? I nod again and move towards the stove to take his place. He comes back moments later with my phone, bag, and school uniform. I grab my phone and immediately plug it in before going to the bathroom to change. Looking at myself in the mirror, I could almost look like Aizawa's actual son, what with the bags under my eyes. I splash my face with cold water, trying my best to make the puffiness go down. Guess that's what I get for crying so much. I get into my uniform and straighten out my hair before exiting the bathroom. I hear my phone turn on because of the constant buzz of notifications. I unlock my phone to see over 100 missed messages. I quickly text the group chat that I'm okay, and that my phone had died at the worst possible moment before I lock my phone and put it in my bag. Aizawa set the table, and we say our thanks before eating up a good breakfast. I didn't realize how much being tired makes you want to eat more. Or maybe it was just because I used so much energy crying and my body wants that energy back. In conclusion, I definitely ate more for breakfast than I usually would. I cleaned up the dishes as Aizawa got ready, and soon we were both off to 𝐬𝐻 once again. 𝗵𝗲 standing in front of the 𝐬𝐻 entrance, I hesitate to go in. Will people ask questions? I don't want everyone to know. I hate being expected to answer things. All the nervousness that I should have had before coming to school quickly fills my body. Aizawa watches for a moment as I stood at the entrance before he pats my back and says, "I'll talk to the class and staff so they don't ask questions, okay?" I nod in response before walking inside to my classroom. I sit at the back corner with my head down on my desk, so that if anyone comes in, they will be less likely to bother me. I hear people come in one by one, and even though they aren't asking me anything, I can hear their whispers to each other about me. No one knows what happened, and all they can do is guess, but no one would get close. Who would assume that I was attacked by the same villain who kidnapped me as a child, and it caused me to have a mental breakdown? With that in mind, I relax a bit. If anyone were to ask me something I don't want to talk about, then I can just say that. "Hey, are you all right? I heard a bit of what happened on the news this morning." Izuku asks softly. He doesn't know the full depth of what I went through while I was captured because I didn't really remember myself. He doesn't know the panic attacks I have because of it, but he does know I was captured as a kid, and that would be enough to be worried. "I'm okay right now," I say, looking up at him, knowing I might not be okay later. He pulls me into a hug that I did not expect. "You look like you didn't get any sleep." I hug him back after a moment of shock, a slight smile on my face. Probably because I barely got any. A small chuckle leaves my mouth, but it is not humorous. We both pull away from the hug as class starts. My head throbs as All Might loudly walks into the class. He tells us to get our costumes on and meet him at ground beta. I get up to grab my case once everyone has mostly left the room with theirs. Once in the change rooms, I change in the corner, using the cloak of my costume as a room divider so no one can see me change. I get into the slightly armored black bodysuit, it being surprisingly comfortable. I then pull on my boots and gloves before I grab the chain that was fashioned in such a way it wraps around my waist 3 times before connecting with an easy button I can release without a second thought. I put on my mask and visor before moving the cloak over my shoulders and pulling the hood on. I walk over to ground beta feeling confident in my hero costume. It would be hard for anyone to recognize me in this getup since most of my face is either covered or in the shadow on my cloak. Even after getting out late, I still arrived before most of the girls did. Luckily, no one talked to me during that time besides a few comments on my costume. All Might explains the training exercise, and it actually sounds like fun, so I get a bit excited hoping I get paired with someone good. After drawing a letter, I realize I got paired with Izuku, which is great. What isn't great, however, is that fact we are put up against Bakugo and Ida. Ida would be fine, it was more Bakugo that I'm worried about since he doesn't seem to have a filter on that mouth of his. I mean, if he triggers me, that's his own fault at that point. The match starts, and I talk with Izuku as we make our way down the halls of the building. With our guard up, we are not surprised when Bakugo comes running toward us. I, however, am surprised when he goes past me to aim at Izuku. Words tumble out of his mouth, some of which make no sense to me, but I hated seeing my brother get hurt. All the tension that had been building up from this morning seems to come to a peak. "Bakugo, if you want to fight someone, then fight me." He throws an insult at me before continuing to fight Izuku, which pisses me off even more. Before anyone could see what happened, the tape we needed to wrap the villains in was around his body, and conveniently over his mouth as well. The look of relief on Izuku's face is all I needed to calm myself before we head off to look for Ida and the weapon. Once we found Ida, it was quite clear how simple it would be to capture the weapon. I know Ida is smart, but removing all objects from the room, except for the weapon, would not increase his chances of winning. Apparently, I spoke too soon as Bakugo came crashing in, regardless of the fact he should already be out since we captured him. There wasn't much I could do but dodge explosions until Izuku tackled him, and they both went through the floor. Well, Ida, I guess it's just you and me now. So tell me, what was your plan if this happened? I laugh after his explanation. Clearly you don't know the extent of my quirk. How do you expect to keep the weapon away from me if you can't even move it yourself? I hold the weapon in place with telekinesis and move towards it. Ida tries his hardest to move it before realizing it is futile. He then charges at me to keep me away from it, but I just hold in him place as well. Just as I'm about to touch the weapon and claim our victory, the entire floor breaks apart. I am quick to hold myself in the air as well, and I look up to see the entire building has been blasted through. What the heck were you thinking, Izuku? I quickly pull the weapon towards me and touch it before placing it on the part of floor that is solid. I move Ida to safety as well before moving through the hole in the floor, down to where Izuku is. It was announced that we had won already, and Izuku looked to be unconscious with Bakugo nowhere to be seen. I quickly move and pick up his body, careful of his clearly broken arm, before bringing him to Recovery Girl. I join the rest of the class as they went over what happened, and how both Bakugo and Midoriya had failed the point of the exercise, and how Bakugo should have stayed down once he was tied up. I got lost in my thoughts before a calm monotone voice came into my ear. Are you all right? Todoroki asks as he glances down at me. No, not just at me, at my stomach. I look down and see that my costume had been burnt in one spot, which so happened to be where one of my largest scars are. I cover myself with my cloak before looking back at Todoroki. He seems to have an empathetic gleam in his eyes. I'm fine. It is not something I usually let people know about me. He nods before saying, I get that. I'm not proud of my scar either, but it's not really something I can hide. What's it from? I ask without thinking. Sorry, I shouldn't have asked, it's personal. I apologize as the look of hatred fills his eyes. I quickly realize it's not hatred directed at me, but at who did this to him. It's fine. My mom poured boiling water on my face because it reminded her too much of my father, and I hate him for it. It's why I only use ice and not fire, because it's his quirk. I look at him a bit confused but his reasoning. But it's your quirk. You have both ice and fire, making it one of the best quirks out there. You'll never overheat or get frostbite. You have no drawbacks because of both sides of your quirk. If you think that not using part of your own quirk will benefit you, in the end it won't. There will be times when ice doesn't cut it, and then what? Are you just going to not do anything to help, because that would mean using your fire? Todoroki is taken aback by my adamancy. He seems to contemplate for a bit before randomly asking, are you and Midoriya related? You look quite similar and quite close. I raise my eyebrows in surprise, and at the change in topic. Ooh, yeah, we are. Why? Why aren't you a Midoriya then? It's a long story, but I guess I can shorten it. Our parents split when we were born, and I went with my dad, and my dad went missing when I was 6, so I was adopted by Aizawa. I didn't know I had other family until I met Izu Midoriya at the entrance exam. I see. So if you don't mind me asking, what is your scar from? Do I want to tell him? What's the worst that could happen? He already shared his secret, so it'd only be fair. This particular scar is from a knife, I think. That or a villain's quirk. I don't really remember all that well. I give him a nervous smile as I fidget with my cloak. All he does is nod before he leaves to go do his run of the exercise. The matches ended quickly after that, and before I knew it, the end of the school day had arrived. After changing out of my costume, I made my way to the front gates of the school. A bad feeling fills my gut, and I stop in my tracks. I can't go home right now. Not alone. He's still out there, so I'm still in danger. I can't protect myself from him. I'll just end up in his clutches again. My internal debate is cut short when Izuku and Hitoshi walk up on either side of me. We'll walk you home. Aizawa-sensei said that we need to stay the night with you in order to make sure nothing happens, because he got called in right after school ended. Izuku says. I feel relieved, but at the same time a bit scared. I don't know if I'll be able to sleep, because now it's more than just my life on the line. 𝗵𝗲𝗄. We arrived at my house without incident, which to me seemed like it was just the calm before the storm. The likelihood of anything happening tonight is low since there is more people here, and because my dad knows that he knows where we live. Still, I couldn't help but worry. We prepare supper together and soon eat our dinner around the dining room table. It's a quiet meal, but it wasn't a good quiet, more like the tension in the room, it getting more and more noticeable. It's as if my nerves were airborne and causing everyone else to feel tense. There's something bothering you in. You know, you can just tell us, right? Hitoshi says. He's known me a lot longer than Izuku, and therefore is like the brother I never had. Well, until recently. We share everything, and he knows everything about me, even more than I might know about myself. I nod my head slightly, not wanting him to force an answer out of me, which he usually does if he believes it's for my benefit. It's none of your concern, I say, gazing at him a bit harshly. Why don't we do something to pass the time? Like play a game or something? Izuku asks, trying his best to lighten the mood. Okay, what do you want to play? I reply. What about 2 truths and a lie or never have I ever? He suggests. I contemplate his decisions, wondering if he was plotting something stupid through a game before making my decision. Never have I ever sounds good to me. And so Hitoshi, Izuku, and I play multiple rounds before deciding it was time to clean up and go to bed. I realize now that my room is still taped off, and I still have no idea why. While they grab the spare mats to sleep on from under the stairs, I make my way upstairs to my room. I debate for a bit whether to go in or not before ultimately opening the door. I stop in the doorway with the door wide open. The place has been completely trashed, and my eyes get glued to the writing on the wall that stared at me like a death sentence. All I want to do in this moment is cry, but that fear of being judged by the people I love is greater than the fear of what those words on the wall meant. I shut the door and lean back against it, trying to get the image out of my mind. My hands shake a bit as I bring them up to my face. I take a deep breath before pushing off the door and heading downstairs. I grab some clothes from the dryer and change into them before helping set up the mats in the living room. I grab lots of blankets and pillows from the linen closet before settling down on the mat. I lie there for what seems like an eternity, unable to fall asleep. Izuku's soft snores are all that I hear as I stare up blankly at the ceiling. Can't sleep? Hitoshi whispers. I shuffle under the blankets to face him. I'm not surprised that he's still awake since he suffers from insomnia, and definitely didn't bring his medication for it with him. I'm scared that if I fall asleep that I won't be able to wake up. He hums before he responds. That's a new fear for you. It used to be a wish that I could relate to. What happened last night? I know a villain broke in, but you seem unharmed, and so does Aizawa. He was here. He wanted revenge, but instead found me. I was so scared. Everything hurt, and yet I wasn't injured. I had a bad panic attack. He's still out there, and he still wants me. I don't want to seem weak in front of you or Izuku, so I can't sleep because I'm almost certain that I'll wake up unable to breathe or move. The words came tumbling out one after the other, and tears sting my eyes as my hands grasp onto my blankets tightly. I hear the rustle of blankets before warmth engulfs me. During my short outburst of emotion, I had woken Izuku, and even though he didn't really know what was going on, he still knew I needed comfort. He holds me in his arms, which helps me calm down a little bit, enough that I soon fall asleep. Midoriya's Pav Shinzo and I had already been up for a while, although I'm not sure if he got any sleep at all. All the mats and blankets were put away, except for the ones In's using. Shinzo is currently making breakfast as I sit on my phone in the living room. A strange noise causes me to lift my eyes from my phone screen. In's breath came as short gasps, and I felt the panic rise up in me. In. I quickly move next to his still limp body, but hesitate to doing anything. What am I supposed to do when someone is having a nightmare? Night terror? Panic attack? Sleep paralysis? Heck, I don't even know what's happening. Tears prick my eyes because of the feeling of helplessness. Help. I need help. I yell out a bit desperately. Shinzo comes rushing into the room and takes one look at In before something like realization crosses his face. He moves to be on the other side of him, muttering, "He said this would happen. Think. Aizawa is usually the one to bring him out of this state, but he usually uses physical contact as the first step, then talks to him and gets him to slow down his breathing. He's in a state of panic and paralysis, so he can feel what's going on, but is too panicked to focus on words. As Shinzo explained what is happening to In, I try my best to calm myself. What is physical contact? A hug. But if he's lying down, I don't want to crush him, that would make things worse. I start to lift his limp body into a sitting position before holding him tightly, but not too tight. I rub his back comfortingly and talk to him, saying that everything is going to be okay and that we are here for him. I take deep breaths, trying to slow down my own panicked breathing, hoping he'll do the same. Tears stream down his face and soak my shirt before his hands clutch onto my shirt, and a sob comes out of his throat. He buries his face in my chest as sobs rack his body. I look over to Shinzo with a look of what do I do now? But all he does is shrug. Hey, and do you want to talk about it? I ask softly after the crying had become no more than sniffles. He shakes his head hesitantly before changing it to a nod. He pulls away and sits cross-legged before pulling the blanket around his shoulders like a cape. Dad said I can't keep suppressing my emotions, so I guess I have to start to talk about it. He sighs before he starts to fidget with the edge of the blanket. I didn't want you guys to see me like this. Mind you, that wasn't the worst panic attack I've ever gotten. The worst one was when I was much younger, and I passed out and ended up in the hospital because right before passing out, all the small objects in the room came hurtling towards me. They suspect that the feeling I had of being crushed was translated into almost actually being crushed through my quirk. Luckily, I was still little, so I couldn't move bigger objects, and I got away with a broken bone or two. After that, I started to suppress things like memories or anything else that could cause me to go into a panic attack. Suppressing emotions came next, and I felt worthless, like no one cared about me. My real dad had abandoned me, and Izawa was always out on duty, so I was constantly left alone with only dark thoughts haunting me. I gave in to the voices in my head telling me that I needed to die, and that I should have died when I was 6. Cutting myself was as far as I could bring myself to ending it all. But Izawa took notice of my strange behavior when he would train with me, and soon I felt so guilty that I told him. I've been clean ever since. Mind you, Dad doesn't let me keep anything sharp in my room anymore. So that brings us to what happened last night. The villain Blaze escaped and came here for revenge against Izawa, since he's the one who locked him away. But Dad wasn't home and I was, and he so happens to be the same guy who kidnapped me when I was 6. Long story short, I attacked him and ran away when he was down and proceeded to have a panic attack on a nearby roof. Dad found me before I passed out, and I slept with him closed that night. I woke up just like I did this morning, which is not fun, by the way. This time I think it was for a different reason though. Yesterday it was because all my suppressed memories came back. But today, I think it's because I know he's going to come back and try and get me. I watch as takes a deep breath. He had said a lot, and slowly everything was starting to make sense to me. How do you know he'll come back? I asked, letting curiosity get the better of me. I looked into my room, which I'm not supposed to do because it's been blocked off by police tape. You could go have a look if you want to know. I nod and take his word for it. 𝗵𝗲, where is Dad anyway? He would usually be ready to go to school by now. He never came home last night. Shinso replies. I nod in acknowledgement before my eyes go wide. He's never late on a school night, ever. Something must have happened to him. We all share worried glances before my phone rings, breaking the silence. 𝗵𝗲, the phone rings through the eerie silence of the room. I quickly grab my phone, hoping it's Dad telling me he's okay. It's an unknown number, but I pick it up anyways and put it on speakerphone. Hello? I ask, unsure of what to expect from the other end. Sorry to disturb you before school, but this is Principal Nezu. We've received word that Izawa is unable to come in today, and he also asked that you come to the school immediately and stay with one of the teachers until farther notice. President Mike will be at your house to escort you to school in about 5 minutes. Again, sorry for all the trouble. Wait, and he hung up. The beeping of the deadline leaves me wondering even more why Dad isn't here right now. I shut off my phone before getting up to get ready for school. Izuku and Hitoshi seem to be ready and breakfast was made earlier, so I move as fast as possible so that I can leave as soon as Papa gets here. I am stuffing food down my throat as the doorbell rings. Hitoshi goes and opens the door, and in comes President Mike with all his loudness. Ready to go, champ? He asks before ruffling my hair. Izuku seems a bit surprised by his actions, and I realize that I haven't told him yet. Is it okay if they come as well? I say, gesturing to Izuku and Hitoshi. Yamada straightens up before clearing his throat and responding with a yes. He clearly did not realize that Midoriya is also here. As we walk to school, Izuku pulls me to walk beside him as Yamada and Hitoshi walk in front of us in their own conversation. Since when have you been close with President Mike? He half whispers to me. Ooh. I'm technically not supposed to say anything because Dad hates the media, but Izawa has been dating Yamada for a few years now, so he's practically my second dad. Sorry, I didn't tell you. I laugh nervously as I rub the back of my neck, wondering if there would be some kind of backlash from telling him later. Oh, I guess that makes sense. And sorry for prying, I know Izawa likes his privacy and hates the media. I promise I won't tell anyone. He gives a reassuring smile, and then he starts asking questions about what it's like to have 2 hero parents. Soon enough, we arrive at school. We were fairly early still, so we were allowed to chill in the teacher's lounge for a bit. While sitting, I was fidgeting with my quirk, moving things from one spot on the table to another. I really just want to get my mind busy with something, so I don't put myself into a deep hole of never-ending speculation about my dad. Papa didn't say anything, so I have to assume he either doesn't want to worry me or it's nothing serious. The warning bell for the first class rings, and so we make our way to homeroom. Who's going to be teaching if Dad's gone? I hope it's someone good. I am here to teach this class. I jinxed it. All Might is going to teach the first class, but he looks as if he's not sure what he's supposed to be doing right now. He goes over to the single paper on the desk and reads out the instructions, which happens to be a single sentence. Have students choose class representative and vice representative by the end of class. All Might's sweat drops and looks a bit relieved. He then announces he will be back just before the class ends to see if we have a decision. As soon as the door closes, everyone seems to be jumping out of their seats, asking to be representative. I just fidget with my pen as the chaos ensues. Ida then comes up with an idea of voting in a class rep. Everyone argues that they will all vote for themselves. I step in and say, how about we make a rule that you can't vote for yourself, and you need to put your name on the ballot, so we know that no one voted for themselves. I don't want to be rep, so I can tally up the votes, so not everyone knows who voted for who. Almost everyone agreed with what I had to say, and soon we were all writing our ballots. All the ballots were put into a box on my desk. Once everyone had put one in, I take it to the front of the class and turn on the smartboard. I lay all the ballots out to make sure no one voted for themselves or voted twice, before punching them in so they appear on the board. After finishing, I announce the winner. Midoriya as rep and Yaoyorozu as vice rep. I try my hardest not to let my disappointment slide into my voice when announcing the vice. There is still a good half of class left, but we were done with what we needed to do, so everyone just talked and goofed around with each other. I just sit in my dad's underused desk chair and spin around slowly so I don't get dizzy. After sitting there for a few minutes, Ida comes to lecture me about sitting in a teacher's chair. I ignore him for the most part until he stops the chair from spinning and tells me to respect school property. I am definitely not in a good state of mind right now. I kind of want to slap Ida. Is that a bad thing? Yes, I should respect my classmates, but at the same time, he isn't respecting me. Did he already forget that this is my dad's chair? I guess I wouldn't be that surprised considering we've talked like once. Does everyone forget things about me so easily? Am I just that forgettable? I wonder what he would do if I started to cry right now. My guess would be to panic and get everyone else's attention, meaning I would get all the attention. I mean, it wouldn't be that bad, but I don't want to worry Izuku. Done with my mental rant, I look back up at Ida, who still seems just as frustrated with me. I let out a sigh before pushing his hand off the chair with my quirk. You should learn to respect your classmates as much as you respect school property, Ida, I say as I continue to spin in the chair. Plus, this chair is owned by Aizawa as much as it's owned by the school, therefore I have rights to use it. Though if Dad were here, he'd probably kick my ass out of it regardless of if he's going to use it or not. I stop spinning as look at Ida, whose face fills with understanding before slight regret. I apologize for being rude and telling you what to do, especially since I clearly forgot that this is your father's chair. It won't happen again, he says as his hands chop the air before he bows and walks away. I turn my attention back to my class and decided to have a little fun. As everyone talks, I focus as best as I can and slowly, one by one, I collect their cell phones from out of their bags. I'm glad my dad's desk has a computer on it that hides whatever is behind it. I check everyone's phone to see if any didn't have a passcode. Sadly, I'm out of luck. I do, however, find a few cute lock screen pictures, and I immediately start to ship some people together, assuming no one is dumb enough to have their lock screened as their self. Everyone seems to have a smartphone, except for Uraraka. I feel kind of bad because it must be hard to attend UA without the proper funds for it. It's been a few minutes, and still no one has noticed that their phones are gone. I mean, UA does have a strict no phones policy in class, but still no one has checked theirs at all when there is no teacher around. I get bored, so I try taking people's entire bags instead, which is a lot more difficult, but since the room is so huge, I make the bags go all the way up to the ceiling and make their way over to me. I start with the bags that nobody is gathered around, and soon I have 7 bags behind the desk. Izuku's, Bakugo's, Hagakure's, Aoyama's, Ojiro's, Hitoshi's, and my own. I kind of assumed that Izuku's would be normal, but I did take the chance to flip through his hero notebook. I wrote some things down on the page he has for me, and even signed it for him before putting it back. Bakugo's bag is in prestige condition, which I did not expect, but all he has is dumb textbooks in it and his lunch money. Hagakure's has nothing out of the ordinary, although I don't understand why she has makeup in her bag. Does she even wear makeup? Wouldn't that just make her visible? Or would it be invincible on her face, and thus be pointless? Ayama's bag is full of glitter. I honestly don't understand that guy. Underneath the glitter is a wrapped-up brick of weird French cheese? I don't even know anymore. Ojiro's bag is normal, as well, besides some mint supersized body lotion. Hitoshi's bag is pretty much empty besides a few notebooks and some energy capsules. Just as I'm halfway through bringing Todoroki's bag over to me, someone makes me lose focus. "What are you doing?" Hitoshi says from behind me all of a sudden. Crap, crap, crap. I quickly catch the bag just before it hits someone's head. "Hey, isn't that Todoroki's bag?" Mina asks. Todoroki looks up and realizes it is, and I make the bag move towards him. He grabs it, and then sends a questioning glare at me. I sweat drop as almost everyone looks over at me. Guess the fun is over. Took you all way too long to notice. People start to wonder what I'm talking about until they realize they are missing their bags or phone. Suo. Turns out that I have to be somewhere at the moment. I say as I check my non-existent watch. Just as I get up, Hitoshi grabs my shoulder. "I think it'd be best if you didn't run away from this one, right?" I sigh before almost mindlessly returning everyone's stuff to their desks. I then apologize for taking their stuff before I sit back at my desk. I check the time and realize class should have ended almost a half hour ago, and yet no bells were rung. Does no one else notice? Is something going on that we don't know about, and all the teachers are in some sort of meeting? Or maybe all of a sudden alarms are blaring so loud I can barely think. Level 4 breach immediate lockdown. All students please remain calm and get out of the halls and into a room. Doors will lock in 1 minute.